Welcome to Synergy. This is our show about holistic wellness and healing. We go into many different areas of this, and tonight we are welcoming a new guest to the show, and is Lisa Boyton, or also known as Lisa Lywolf. And she's going to share with us some of her stories about what she does for work and her healing and her practices and how she got where she is now. I'm a lover of looking at origin stories of how people grew up, what they had to deal with, what adversity they overcame, and so on to get exactly where they are in life today and doing the work that they do. So, Lisa, if you could, can you tell us, what you do and so forth, and then we can get into a little bit of where you came from.
Yeah. Hey, Paul. It's so good that we're finally meeting each other face to face. We've been talking for a while on Facebook.
Absolutely.
This has been a plan for a little while. Well, I'm kind of have a similar background to you. Been through hell and back, and I am just amazed at surviving everything I went through. I think so many of us are survivors, regardless of if we went through, addiction and we're in recovery. Because I mean, so many people these days, it feels like we have like a void in us, like a hole that we're just stuffing things in to fill, and it's like generations of dysfunction, and it's been programmed into our egos. So our thoughts are literally beating us up worse than anybody else could. So when I was growing up, my outlet was playing my piano, riding my horses. It was like I would just sit there and my parents would be screaming. I went through a lot as a kid, but I always had an outlet. And until I didn't have that outlet anymore, once my piano was sold, we went through hard times when the 90s hit. They were in real estate, everything crashed. So I didn't have like my outlets. And that's when I started experimenting. But, not until I moved to New York when I was 18 did it really get out of hand. I came out to model, so I went from runways in Paris and New York and I thought it would last forever. I did not think I would end up on the street. So then meeting the wrong people, a habit when I would go to clubs turned into, and, staying skinny for modeling turned into like my coping mechanism for all the crap I didn't deal with. So that was me filling that emptiness, that lack of self-love with drugs, with buying stuff. And eventually when I couldn't buy stuff, when the modeling ended, it just was the drugs. And, an abusive relationship that felt better than being alone. Because, you don't really know when you grow up in dysfunction what healthy is. So, you know, being homeless on the streets, especially being a female, shit happens. It gets real.
I
I
bet.
mean, you can probably relate a little bit to some of the stuff that I've been through.
Definitely, definitely. By the end of my addiction, I was living in my car. I had been to prison. Uh, all these things that I thought, these places I didn't think I would ever turn up. This will never happen to me. And
Yeah.
slowly but surely, all those things that I thought I was above and wouldn't happen to me did happen to me, through mainly the use and abuse of trying to fill that hole. For me, it was a lot of different substances, and but I don't particularly like to just focus on the substance. You mentioned dysfunction that we grow in and so forth, and seeking to fill that hole. And I think that's a great way to look at it, because I think 99% of the people on this earth are trying to do that and have found maybe more functional ways to do it: spending money, overcharging their credit cards, sex,
Oh, yeah.
gambling, eating.
Hmm.
So you can try to fill that hole in many different ways. Um, and sometimes it almost works. Sometimes it almost
Right.
works in a euphoria with plenty of cocaine on hand and stuff like that. I'd feel good. And that's why it's so easy to use that as your sole coping mechanism.
Right,
Because
right.
it works very well. It's instant gratification. You take some,
Mm,
you instantly feel better. You instantly feel comfortable. You instantly feel funnier, more attractive.
mhm,
Everything else, all those areas are lacking. But then what happened for me is you take that out of the equation, and now what?
mm.
Now I'm the person who needed that to function, and now I
Yeah,
don't have that. So that's why I like to look more at the holistic aspects because I literally, to become happy and living a mostly joy-filled life, I had to look at every aspect of how I was living.
yeah,
So I had to look at, my communications, my diet, my exercise, my
yeah.
spiritual practices, and so on and so forth. That I seen some of the modeling pictures I think you have on Facebook from years ago, and well, you're still a knockout, but I mean, like, quite a knockout. That must have been exciting, and even amidst the chaos, you
Oh,
know.
yeah. It was so much fun. I got to travel all around the world. I mean, it was so much fun. And I met so many famous people. I mean, it was so cool. And, you know, it's just like you forget like the emptiness for a while. And a lot of the people, the more money they had, I don't know, it's like the more they had to lose. And they didn't seem any happier. It's kind of like I have family even where I've had to literally say, you can't buy happiness, right? Like at some point you're gonna have to try working for it because there's no way getting around the work. There's no way.
No.
And this is why, and I donate a whole lot of my time because right now I'm in between. I just did a semester at John Jay studying social work and, trauma, coping mechanisms, a social resiliency model is one of them. Because I did go to school to get my KSAC-T. Because what happened was, after being on the street, I finally got pregnant and I was like, I have to get my shit together. I'm not going to do this to my child. And I went into a 6 month TC. And they
What is
like
that?
forced Oh, therapeutic community. I
Oh,
went into
okay.
one. So you can go to therapeutic community for 6 months to a year, but it's like 7 a.m. you get up, you have to clean the floor, whatever your chore is, groups all day, all day. And that's where I first was handed the, AA and NA. I was given the choice. So I opened up the NA book and I did the workbook. And they told me, listen, Lisa, your way hasn't worked. Can you please just for 1 minute? Because I kept, the insanity is you think I'm going to do it better next time. So I'll just use like once every other day. Or, and it's the same with shopping. Okay, I'll just spend a little less or I'll just buy discount stuff or I'll resell it. There's always like insanity of, okay, I'll do it better. And they were like, no, Lisa, just for once, try another way. And that's when I gave up control. And I had to admit I wasn't in control. And that's where I think, this kind of program is so important because you have to find something higher than yourself. You have to find something bigger than yourself. And I didn't love myself enough to do it for myself. And my relationship with God was, I felt like he had forsaken me. And, you know, I just, I didn't love, like, I knew that he existed, but I didn't have a relationship there. So the thing I had to choose was my son. And I was pregnant while I was in the program, and it was like locked down, you couldn't leave. And I did what they told me to do, and I opened up the workbook and I did the groups, and I found, inspiration. And, even though I started out doing it for somebody else, in the end I learned to do it for myself, but it took a long time. And it took, even relapsing, after I had my son. And I was on my bike. I remember, um I had my second NDE when I was riding my bike, and I kept going places I shouldn't have been going.
Mhm.
And I was hit by cars 3 times in 1 year,
Oh my
because the
goodness.
first time I was like, I shouldn't have even stood up, but I did. And I had lawsuits even, and I kept getting on the bike. I even had stitches on my knee from the last accident when I got hit again. 45 miles an hour by an SUV so hard that the truck mirror hit me over my back and the mirror flew off. And I hit the air and I had a choice. I just knew to live or die. And I just said, I didn't even care to live or die. I just thought about my son. I said, please just bring me home to my son. And miraculously, I woke up on the pavement and stood up. But it takes that for you to do the work. And that's when I started going to even church, is where I got started with my awakening.
Well, I mean, that's incredible. I want to get more into that, but I didn't want to get sober. When I didn't want to recover what I had. What I had was not good enough to recover to want to be to live a life. That's why drugs and alcohol were so appealing in the beginning, because they made me feel good, and I had never felt good. I was always in some area of PTSD and so forth, to the point that by time I learned to meditate, by time I learned to relax, by time I learned to do these things, they were not recovery, they were discovery. It was like, wow, relaxation exists. I did not know what it was like, because I was living in mobilization. I was living in fight or flight
Right,
for so long that, to just be able to get to the point where I could take a deep breath and let it out and go, wow, look at the sunset. That's pretty. Look at the stars in the sky. I have a roof over my head tonight. That's
right.
pretty good. And start looking at what's right rather than what's wrong. I have a friend that was on Facebook the other night, and everything was an insurmountable problem in her life, and everyone's asking, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong, and I didn't ask that. I said, what's right, what's
Yeah.
right, is anything going right in your world? And then, of course, the response was, no, everything is terrible. I was like, she works with horses. I was like, how about the horses? Are the horses right? How about, making new plans tonight and stuff like that? Before we were
Yeah, it's
done
all
talking,
perspective.
yeah, she had plans with her sister, and I'm doing nothing. I told her, I was like, hey, come over to my house and watch Ozarks with me if you want, so you're not alone. Sit and have something to eat and watch TV. I even offered to go line dancing. I was like, I don't know how to line dance, so it'll be very
Right.
entertaining to watch me try to line dance. But she found someone else to go with. But and my son today, I was like, there is not much of a period in my life these days where adversity isn't instantly converted to opportunity. What opportunities are here, even in the worst case scenarios? And if it's opportunities, it's not anything to be down in the mouth about or anything like that. But yeah, tell me more about the NDEs for anyone that doesn't know, or near death experiences. I've come close, but I haven't crossed over ever. But these are very interesting to me. I've read quite a few books on them. Can you describe some of these experiences?
Well, it would be very long to really get into them, but the first time was when I actually was like early, like when I was still modeling and I had come home to California. I was like 19 or 20, and my mom over medicated me. Anyways, I ended up running the streets and doing crystal meth, the only time in my life I ever did before or after that time. And I had overdosed, and I was with all these people that were like, I guess, wanted felons waiting for the shift change at 7 a.m. So I had overdosed and they weren't going to call anybody. And all I knew was I was like floating to the ceiling, and I knew perfect happiness was waiting for me. And I heard this voice, and it said, this is for real. This is not a trip. You will not come back. But I had to do something. Even though I was in spirit form, I had to like spiritually exhale to like cross the doorway to the other side. Well, to make a long story short, I was pushed back into my body and I still didn't feel a heartbeat, just something warm coming out of my nose and mouth, which ended up being vomit and blood. I drowned in my own vomit and I just was sitting there and all of a sudden I felt like lightning hit me and I went and I came back and I came back with all these abilities. Like I could tell anybody what sign they were. I could tell anybody if I knew if people were going to die. I knew so much, but I was like still in the thralls of you know, modeling and using, like I wasn't ready for this. So then I spent like 20 years running from my abilities,
Yeah.
you know? So what really changed it for me was when I actually, did cross over and go to the other side, on my last NDE when I was, really close to the edge where I don't know what happened. I was doing chemo for 6 months and I went to sleep, but I woke up in a place filled with light and all of these people. And this would be a long story to tell you, but I was telling them all about my life and I had this horrible addiction. And I was telling them that, I was a model and everybody was so interested. It was like they were literally writing stuff down, like, tell us what happened. And then I was turning around and my guide looked me straight in the eyes and then she sent me back. But the thing was, when I came back, I didn't come back alone. It was like I was back in my body and I took this big breath and sat up and I could see this whole universe, just like the beginning of the universe, explode in front of me. And then I heard Father, and I felt like God in the room with me. And I could remember like the creator. And I was like, how could I have forgotten you? And what came to me was that if we all remembered, like it had to do with free will. Like we came here and we chose to have this veil of forgetfulness so that we make the mistakes. We come here for experience. And every experience, no two are alike, no matter who you are. And even if you live multiple lifetimes, you'll never have the same moment twice. And every moment is saved. Every moment that we live, every lesson that we learn goes back to the creator. But we choose not to remember. And I was so ashamed because I knew that I felt like Eve in the garden where I was naked, like exposed. Like I knew he could see everything I had ever done. And I felt so ashamed. I said, I'm not living up to your glory. And I don't know why I use those words because I don't use those words. And he laughed and it was like, you silly child. And it was sent like emotions, like telepathy. It was like, you could never do anything wrong. I would never be ashamed of you living. And these experiences are how you glorify me. This is how the creator knows itself, is through the reflection of us, because we're all fractals of the creator, you know? And it was just like there's no judgment. And he showed me like this map and like all these different pathways, but all of them leads to the light. Like
Mhm.
even if you take the wrong way, it all leads back to God. And it's just amazing because i just I just couldn't believe that I could remember. And he was telling me that I had this really big purpose that I was supposed to do in the future. But it's crazy because he sent me this love that I'll never forget, this joy that I almost wanted to explode. It was just so big, this love. And this is what I meditate on now. This is how I found heart coherence,
Mhm.
which is something I think is really important. I don't think we're all connected to our hearts.
Mhm.
I think we have so much scarring that isn't healed, and we don't even realize we have shielded our hearts that we don't even reach it. It's like a desperate kind of love. Love is like an exchange. We don't even
Mhm.
we don't even know it. And I didn't realize it until I tried to really focus on like my heart chakra, my love light. And I realized it was like this big and it was covered by layers like an onion. And I just started meditating and being very, very present, like how Eckhart Tolle teaches the power of now, just being in the now and meditating on this higher love. You know how you think of like your kids or the birth of your child and you get this rush of love?
Hmm.
That feeling that produces the oxytocin and all those painkillers is what's helped me get through all of the pain that I live in from those accidents, and what has helped me teach other people to be more heart centered and connect with that love and learn to love ourselves, because that's the thing that's going to get people clean. That's the thing that's going to get people out of misery and change your perspective on everything. And like you said, stop focusing on what you don't have, focusing on what you do have. And that gratitude and that joy is what will get you through each day with like happiness and joy, you know?
Yeah, I really, I can relate to that very much. I'd hardened my heart for so long through these experiences. Person hurt me, that person hurt me. I would live as a victim. You know, if only people loved me correctly and had raised me right, and I deserved a good child. Yada 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 yada. You know, and to get out of that was, you know, the beginning of starting to practice gratitude and to build a strong heart rather than a hard heart. And by that, I mean that people can hurt me today, and I'm almost in instant forgiveness, even if they didn't realize, because, you know, most of the time we go around hurting each other. And, you know, oftentimes there's no malintent. There's nobody's trying to really, you know, go out of their
Right.
way to hurt us and so forth. So for most of those, they just vaporize, and I give people the benefit of the doubt. I don't assume. I figure, well, maybe they weren't trying to. And, you know, if I see repetitive action of
Right.
someone trying to hurt me, I still forgive them. I still choose to forgive first. And then maybe you know, in some cases of forgiveness, you know, I don't advise reconciliation with the person if they molested you or
Right.
something like that. But for the person themselves, I still recommend forgiveness. It's like, this is an action that you can take on a daily basis to forgive that person that will free you of their power over you.
Yep.
You know, one time I did a calculation. I sat with the calculator on my phone, and I figured out how many hours I spent angry at minimum
Oh,
wage. And it came to about $450,000 worth of time I wasted at minimum wage being mad.
oh my
Uh,
gosh.
so just for the, you know, to not have that waste of time and that negativity. But
Right.
yeah, that's been something I've had to work at, is to keep my heart open and so forth, because human beings, let's face it, we let each other down. We're
Yeah.
imperfect, and we hurt each other and so forth. So the one thing you can basically depend on from me, if we're in a relationship long enough, friendship or so forth,
Yeah.
I will probably eventually do something that hurts your feelings or so forth. You know, I usually tell my friends ahead of time, hey, if I do that, you know, maybe notify me or
Right.
something that I've done, and I'll look at my behavior, and I'll see if it warrants changing and so on and so forth. But
And like,
I want to hear more about the powers too. Some examples of those, that would be interesting.
well, can I comment on what you were
Yes,
just saying?
yes, yes, please.
Well, like you were saying, like, first of all, like a lot of times people don't even realize they're hurting us because we are the ones who are being triggered. So it's actually our issue. Like, yeah, some people are really cruel and mean,
Mm,
but it's like, aside from that, like the daily stuff people say, like I know when I'm really in heart coherence, like people can say stuff and it really usually doesn't trigger me. But when something like triggers me, I know that that's an issue I have that I got to work on. And even though that person was probably being an a-hole and like, trying to trigger me or whatever they said, I still have to look at it as my issue. And then I can be like, I can forgive them because they have issues. Because we are kind of in a me central world
mm,
where we kind of think everybody's looking at me and everybody's trying to hurt me and me. But everybody else is feeling the same way. They're all like, everybody's looking at me. So they're not really paying attention to you because they're so focused on their own selves, you know? And so they're like, people run around and are hurting people, and like you were saying, sometimes they don't even realize it, and it is good to bring it up to somebody, because yeah, part of it is me and part of it is to let the person know, well, I felt this was hurtful, and I am sensitive to this. Maybe you know people that aren't, but
Mm,
the whole point is communication. Like, we're so afraid to just communicate with each other and keep it real, and we're so caught up in assuming and playing thoughts in our head and trying to figure out what the other person's thinking versus just asking them, you know?
mm,
And one thing I had to really work on was trying to stop those running thoughts, because that's my ego talking to me, trying to protect me, but it's has dysfunctional programming, and reprogramming my brain,
mm,
because I grew up, the thoughts could have started with a teacher. This thought is maybe my mom. This thought could have started and been reinforced by society, what I seen on TV. But it's gonna play, and it's gonna, assume what this person's talking about. And having a quiet mind and being in the present, because most fear comes from the future, what could happen, what might happen. And then a lot of our anxiety comes from the past, and the past doesn't exist. It's like saying, okay, we had a fire 3 weeks ago. Can you go hurry up and put it out? There's nothing you can do about it. So why even deal with it? It's like when I did 5 years of trauma therapy. Ooh, am I frozen?
looks like you're frozen. Oh, there
Okay.
we go.
Yeah, because Facebook won't shut up, keeps notifying me, but it didn't really do anything. It just made me relive things, and the mind doesn't know the difference between, this, reliving it like just in your mind or actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't like, I think that a lot of modalities in psychology, up till, probably the last 50 years, we're looking at desensitization of trauma. And I don't think we desensitize to trauma. I think that going over it again and again without a constructive purpose
Right.
for going over it is re-traumatizing ourselves and so forth, especially if I do an AA meeting where I have to do a speaking engagement or something like this, not very much about my use and abuse of drugs and alcohol anymore. I used to did it enough to become homeless and be put in prison. So, I mean, really relishing over some of those things where I was doing harm to myself. Oh boy, one of my cats is going crazy over there. Whereas doing harm to myself served no good purpose.
Exactly.
So I focus more on what I've been able to do since I started these practices. So you said that you mentioned, the therapeutic community and the 12 steps and going through I didn't go through the NA workbook. I went through it in AA, but I went through it very thoroughly, really on that fourth and fifth, looking at the things I feared, because anything that
Yeah.
would make me angry is something I fear. Somebody's telling my boss I'm drunk. Well, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose my livelihood. I won't be able to put food in my belly and so forth.
And
So,
the inventory, yeah.
yeah. So how impactful was that when you did it? And because you mentioned something that I truly believe is there is no way through but through. You have to
Yeah.
go through the things to make you healthy, and it's going to be a bit of work and so on to get there. So how much of that are you still in the practice? I know it's almost rote for me now to go through that self-examination look anytime I'm upset. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, and usually 9 times out of 10 my pride's been hurt or
Yeah.
something like that. Oh, I got to be more loving and forgiving, and if I need to apologize, I need to apologize and so forth. How is that with you?
Yeah. Um, I have to say, like, 2019, like right before COVID, is when I did a whole year taking care of my dad out in California, but I had this like quickening in my soul. And that's when I got really deep into my awakening, and I really started examining like myself and who I was, and taking the inventory. But I got just obsessed with learning everything I could. I read so many books, um, just tons and tons and tons. I mean, Three Magic Words, A Course in Miracles, The Power of Now. Linda Hayes is one of my favorites. But I started doing a lot of like self-help stuff to where and I found that when I increased my frequency, because when you're at a love frequency, and it took really clearing out my heart, and getting rid of that ego mind. And it's always going to be there. The ego is always going to be there. But once you take a step back and you start becoming the observing presence. So you're like
Mm,
raising your frequency to love. And then you start observing your thoughts. Like when these thoughts come, you just start observing, and then you do self inquiry. Okay, where is this coming from? Where did this originate from? And it's the work. And it took like several years of raising my frequency, doing self inquiry, because you learn where the thoughts originated from. So you learn about yourself, you learn about the traumas, you learn about what made you who you are, because your ego is your mind made sense of self.
hmm
Who are you? When someone asks, okay, so tell me about yourself, who are you? And it's like, oh my gosh, that's like the hardest question for me now, because like, I'm a spiritual being having a physical human experience. I'm
hmm
love. I'm a fractal of the creator, so we're all co-creators. Like our thoughts are so powerful. Like in epigenetics they talk about how powerful your thoughts are.
mm,
People on high stress and anxiety like literally create cancer.
yeah.
And it's just like once you control your thoughts, and once you raise your frequency to a love frequency, and you start getting rid of all those layers that cover your heart, you know and for some reason, like, even though my heart is more exposed, it's like there's a peace there, because the ego mind working on that at the same time, and knowing that it lies, that it puts me down more than anybody out there could. I hurt myself in abuse throughout my lifetime, not just like now, because my ego will still kick in, but not like it used to. But if you think about it, we have hurt ourselves more than anybody ever could,
Yeah.
you know? And that mind that created that is still there, that ego mind. So that's where the white knuckling comes in. That's why and to get rid of that white knuckling is like doing the healing work, you know?
Yeah.
Trying, like you were saying, always doing that personal inventory, always, going into your thoughts and doing that like examination, doing that self-inquiry, and finding like that love for yourself. Like, I love myself because like I'm part of everything. I'm you. When I look at you, I can see myself in your eyes looking back. And it's the strangest thing, because I can see you and I love you, and I know you can feel it, and
Mm,
people can feel it everywhere. And that's the place that you want to get to, where you just like you can say whatever you want, and my brain is going to talk shit about it so that I get upset. But as soon as I do self-inquiry, it's not going to matter. If I forgive you, it's more for me than it is for
mhm.
you. But if it helps you, I will. But when we do that, it does more for us than the other person, because being hateful and being pissed off takes so much energy. I
Oh
mean,
God, yeah.
it's like
It's
it's hard. It's hard.
my $450,000 life of anger was enough to prove that. And the fact that without it, my financial abilities grow constantly, looking at passive income, looking at different projects to bring me into better financial stability and stuff like that. But I'm not focused on that. I have enough to eat a steak anytime I want to. My car runs. I have a roof over my head. I got some cats around here who like to hang out with me. My kids don't will conversate with me. They don't hate me anymore. And so you get to a point, and then started reading a lot, and most of the reading I do is toward the books I'm writing, researching more and more. But the funny thing is all of it came from above. All of it
Yeah.
came from above. In the beginning, I knew nothing. I thought prayer was stupid. I didn't think it would work. But I had a sponsor that was humble enough to say, I don't know why this works, but you look at us. We're happier than you. What have you got that's better? And so I had to, I didn't have a wise ass answer for that. I had to admit that they are happier than me, and happier is better than what I feel right now. So why don't I give this thing a try?
Yeah.
And so it became, it's became a practice of self-discipline that now every day I do certain things that in the beginning would have looked like a ton of work. I get up, I make my bed, I pray, I brush my teeth, I shower, I meditate, and so forth. So the beginning of my day looks like, wow, look at all this crap he's doing. But
Yeah.
the funny thing is you start getting all these I don't know, spiritual paradoxes. Like, I can meditate for 2 hours and get everything I need to do done. I can give as much love as I have and not be empty of love. I
Yeah.
can share, share, share and still have enough. So I encounter these, and you made so many good points, Lisa. So many of these things that I learned came directly from just like a simple prayer, and even the adversity.
Yeah.
Like I made the mistake before of praying for patience. I don't do that anymore because, what I got from praying for patience was beach traffic, long lines at the store behind lottery ticket
All the
players.
lessons.
Yeah, yeah. So I asked for this. I asked for this, and
Yep.
I'm given the opportunity to earn it through the work,
Right. Right.
and so on. So it's just like now I see it as, okay, I have these spiritual disciplines and stuff I do on a regular basis that keep me even keeled, keep me feeling good and stuff. What's like your average day look like of some of these things and stuff?
I never really have an average day. I mean, and like you're saying, it's all about habits, you know? So, and it's all about retraining your brain and retraining the things that you do every day. So, like, usually what I do when I first wake up is I just immediately, connect with Father God and just feel the rush of love, like the
Hmm.
creator that, and I'm blessed in a way because I can pull from that NDE where Father God came to me, and I don't know why he came as Father. I don't know if there's a mother. All I know is that there's the all source, and beneath that, there's Father, which is the creative aspect. But in the beginning of the Our Father prayer, actually in Aramaic, Jesus says Ab womb, and Abba is Father, and womb is womb, like the womb in a woman. So he is
Hmm.
acknowledging the feminine or creative aspect of Father God, but it felt like this is who created me. And so I connect with that because my brain is so active when I'm sleeping, probably because I don't let those thoughts run when I'm awake. So they like get me as soon as I wake up. And I was like, no, I don't need a running commentary of everything I just dreamed about and na. Because it's like, our thoughts they're like a river and they try to drag you along with it. And the ego's like, and then it's like, we are not our thoughts. Like, we can use our brain like a computer, but it also has been programmed with all of our life experiences to like spit out thoughts. So even when we're not using it, it's constantly spitting out thoughts. So,
Thing out what?
spitting out thoughts,
Thoughts.
like a running commentary on everything we're
Oh,
doing,
okay.
looking at, like, oh, look at that person. Ah, well, look what she's wearing. No. Oh boy, I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And it's like I catch my brain and I have to go, I don't need a running commentary. And I really learned this through Eckhart Tolle is the power of now. He used to sit on a bench and look at the sky and just feel this expansion versus contraction that we're all
Mm.
expansiveness of your heart. And so what I try to connect with throughout the day is that expansiveness. And then I usually go online and there's a spiritual community I work within, and there's always somebody that is asking questions, and I'm trying to figure out, like, do I want to try to work for myself? Do I want to start coaching? Because it's something that I'm doing already, and I do readings and things like that. Because I've done a lot of readings, I've always had abilities. And I mean, people's loved ones come in. I never know what's going to happen in a reading. It's like the strangest thing. I can't just say I can promise you a loved one's gonna. I can't, because I don't know what's gonna happen. It just is what comes up. But it's great because I'm an empath, so I can intuit what other people are feeling. I can feel what they're feeling,
Mhm.
so I don't have to ask 1,000 probing questions. And plus, like you and I, we're peers. We've been there. If you've been through it, chances are I have too, or I can relate in some way. And so I'll do videos, Zoom calls. I did one Thursday. It was 3.5 hours, and I told you that's why yesterday we didn't do this, because I was knocked out, because I do energy healing, and this person has something that's terminal, and I gave a little too much, and they felt so good, which made it all worthwhile, and they actually slept, somebody who normally doesn't sleep, um because they're veteran and they got a lot going on as a
It can
vet.
be draining.
Yeah, I was
It can be
drained. I was
very
drained.
draining.
I sat in the sun yesterday for a while, so that recharges. A lot of people, when you feel drained, put your feet, ground them on the grass, and just let the sun hit you, because that helped a lot.
Mhm.
But, I don't know. Do I want to work for myself? Do I want to work for another program? Because I was a counselor for at a detox, which was tough, because you have to do intake, assessment, intake, and then treat the person, and then referral. Boom, boom, boom. They really don't get that much help. And then the program had to deal with another program, so I couldn't send them where I wanted to, only the sister program. And there's so many rules. I can't be like, yeah, I relate. And, the one thing, when I was going to school, that, when I was looking up a lot of statistics this past semester, was everyone, especially people in the reentry project coming out of prison, they said the one thing they were missing was spirituality, spiritual practices. And a lot of places, a lot of, funding comes from the
Yeah.
government, or from, private people, that they want to say dictate what goes on, and they don't want to back woo woo stuff, you know? And this is why so many therapists are becoming coaches, and there's a coach on every corner, because it's working. And studies are showing, the Heart Math Institute has done a ton of studies showing that connecting with the heart, it works. So, that's basically what I'm going through right now. And it's like, even when I walk out the door, I run into people in the street, and someone can say something to me like, this guy had said something kind of flirty and a little like obscene, but it's always an opportunity to talk to somebody. So,
Mhm.
there's something that I believe in, that Neville Goddard, an author, a New Thought author from the 60s, teaches that everybody is just kind of a version of us pushed out. So there's always something in us that is represented by this person. And so I said to him, we're all just reflections of each other, and there has to be something about yourself that you don't love for you to speak to me like this. And he was like, whoa. And we ended up having a really good, deep conversation. And he had gone through so much in his life. And he actually was like some rapper back in the 80s. And in the end, he was a hardcore dude, did a lot of time in prison. He was like, I would kill for you. And I said, but would you love for me? Because it's really easy to find something to die for, but it's hard to find something to live for,
Oh,
you know.
that is incredible. I've
And
had
that,
I've had similar experiences.
yeah, I'll bet, because
I
it's,
Yeah, I had one with a veteran. He's an Afghanistan veteran. I was in the hospital to get a paper signed for work, and long visits to the hospital. I think I was there 15 hours. I brought some stuff to entertain myself, my iPad and some reading, and now and I'm sitting there. I'm just in the chair and I'm meditating. I'm just doing a little. mm, quietly, so nobody's like really, oh, what's this guy doing? And they bring this guy in, and he is just a ball of rage. The only thing, he's so drunk, the only thing keeping him on his feet is his rage. And he's surrounded by police and security and so on and so forth. I have not been in the military, I have not been to war. I know what he's going through with the alcoholism, but I really, I usually try to choose not to talk to people while they're intoxicated because it doesn't do much good. But
Right.
he was on the verge of striking one of these people, and so I took a chance and I stood up, and this was pretty miraculous in itself. The security let me talk to him. Usually, cops are doing something; they are, get back, sir. We're taking care of
Yeah.
this. They don't want it, and they actually stopped. I was like, I'm a counselor. Maybe I could get him to chill a little bit here and accept some help. And so they stepped back, and I pulled a chair right up to him. Now I'm within, this guy's burly dude. I'm not a tough guy. And I'm within a foot and a half, we're in each other's personal space. And I asked him his name, and he told me his name. His name was Rick. And I said, Rick, thank you for your service, because that was one of the things he was going on about. And I was like, I know where you are with your pain. We just want to help you, and 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 try to get you some help here. And the rage, he was ready to hit somebody, and the rage just
Yeah.
fell. It just disappeared. And this big burly Marine, a homeless Marine, fell into my arms and just started crying and let me hold him. And
Wow.
and I had nothing prepared. I was like, I don't know what to do here. I'll come and please
Holding
something work
space.
through me. And so at best, I can keep myself humbled, because at best I am a conduit of that love, of that source, of God, creator, whatever it's called. I can get lucky enough. I don't like luck. I don't think that's a word that exists. I think blessed. I think we make our own fortunes. But yeah, those experiences have told me a lot about me, who I am, what I'm here for, and it very much boils down to very simple things. I'm a child of God. I'm a drop of the ocean, and I am here to serve.
Exactly.
Some days service might be smiling at someone who's having a bad day or picking a cigarette off the ground. Some days service might be inventing a new modality of psychology. I don't know whether what great things are going to come, but if I just keep that attitude, so we've touched on some interesting parts of Lisa, which I am so happy that you have shared.
And it's so good to hear your story too, because that's God working through you. And sometimes there's nothing to say because I that's happened to me so many times because I live in the worst neighborhood. Like 87% of the crime in all five boroughs happens in the Bronx. 85% happens in my precinct area.
Yeah.
So overdosing. And because I'm trained, I can look at the pupils, I know what's going on. I mean, the people just bugging out, but somehow, like, I'll get the paramedics be like, listen, I can get her to calm down. She's like, don't touch me. And it's amazing how
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like God just like comes in, and I'm not even thinking about the words. The words come out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I've been there. I know what you're going through, and you relate to them, and you just like give them the love that they needed and just make them feel safe. Because I know this woman was just bugging out that I was talking to. And I was like, listen, I've been there. This totally sucks. But you're going to get 3 good meals. They're going to give you some great drugs, and you're going to get a nice bed to sleep in. So, what have you got to lose? And
Yeah.
it's just, and listening to somebody talk to you and just holding space and not dismissing what they're saying, like you showed him that you cared. You were like, you couldn't just sit there and keep your mouth shut. You just have to, like, you're being inspired. It's like, I call it divine inspiration. It's like, this is, I'm supposed to say something, and I have to, and this is what happens. I know when I'm not meant to. I get like this feeling in my gut, like, just keep going, or, oh, this person, this is their path, they chose it, they're not going to hear you, because you know how it is. Some people, they're not ready to hear you. And so
Yeah.
I've learned not to go to people and just say, this is how you live your life, this would make you so much happier. I've tried even with family, and that's the path they chose, and they're going to be on it as long as they want to be on it. And if they don't want to hear what I have to say, who am I to tell them otherwise? So it's also like accepting what other people choose, and not trying to like force a way of life on people as well. And it's hard, but especially when people are hurting, you know.
Well, it keeps you from being jaded too. I mean, there's plenty
Yeah.
of, more of the people that I work with through the place that I used to work, and through the places I will work until I build my own facility, which I'm in the works of doing. I'm hoping to have a small facility for I keep saying recovery, and I don't feel like that. I feel like discovery is a better word. Discover how to be
Yeah.
happy, discover how to feel joy, discover how to feel comfortable in your skin.
Yeah.
And you said, a lot of the places, and I've experienced this personally, oh, I'm telling some woohoo, I'm telling about God and stuff like that. And I've had to take it, and I've read dozens and dozens of books on the benefits, the scientific empirical benefits
Yeah.
of a God-centered life and so forth, so I can give them a citation list. This is where I got it from. This is
Yeah.
neurologists looking at the brain
Oh,
under
yeah.
into this is these are empirical practices,
Yeah.
stuff that like Jesus Christ talked about, forgiving, loving your enemies and stuff like that. It requires no faith. You just try it, try the forgiveness, try the things that were suggested, and
Yeah.
you don't even have to have a jumping off point, really. Oh wow, that works, I feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So a lot of the Buddhism too, the Eightfold Noble
Mhm.
Path and so forth, will give you things,
Yeah.
concrete things, correct thinking, correct meditation, correct
Mhm.
career, and so forth. So I've been able to get around some of the more scientific aspects by that. I'm like, well, this is all science.
Yeah.
It makes people happier to feel these things. I'm not going to say whether they're, we have a scatological debate of who's right or who's wrong, or you must worship Jesus or Buddha or Allah or any of them. That's a personal exploration. You'll
Mhm.
come to your realizations about that as you explore it. But I can tell them that the people who do these things are generally happier, comfortable in their skin, more productive, and living a better life. But some of the stuff, like, you've touched on and stuff, you know, are looking at alternative therapies like the healing, the energy healing, and stuff like that, which, if you look at now, it's finally starting in general recovery programs to have some yoga, to have some acupuncture, to
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
some qigong or some of these things.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so that's good because, you know, let's face it, we are doing something that's, not the most conventional. I have guided people into meditations who were so upset that I needed to hold them.
Wow.
I would, I
You're
would, I
lucky
would,
they
I
let
would,
you
I would,
touch them.
yeah, I mean, I was like, you can lay back against me. I'm not going to sexually accost you or anything like that.
Yeah,
You
because some
know,
people, you can't even do
yeah,
that. Yeah.
well, it felt correct. It felt
Right.
correct. And so I was able to, I was like, will you let me hold you while you calm? And it ended up,
Yeah.
I was able to end up transferring some of my energy. They felt a lot better, and they could get the starts of quieting that noise down. You
Right.
know, like you were saying about Eckhart Tolle and becoming the observer, I've gotten to the
Mm.
point now that I can stub my toe and say, I'm not going to think about it. You know,
Yeah,
that's pretty good. You know, it's like, okay, that hurts very badly, but let's get on with things.
yeah.
And so what kind of like daily practices, the types of meditation and stuff like that, are you fond of or do or
It all really depends because I do a lot of guided meditations by Brian Scott on YouTube, but
okay.
I do like crystal gazing and um like candle. Would you light a candle and you're like gazing in the flame? Because I do some, but I fall asleep. Like if I'm meditating and I'm listening to guided meditation, I do it every night before bed because I know I'm gonna fall asleep.
Yeah, there you
But if
go.
I want to have a focused meditation and I really want to just feel the energy of love, or if I want to do like something where I'm doing Kundalini and I'm chanting,
Hmm.
I'll use the flame, or when I'm doing Kundalini and chanting, I won't necessarily use it, but the chanting really helps. The Om Namo Guru Dev Namo, that one, it's a good one. Of course, I did it really crappy, but I was just trying to do it real quick. But
Okay.
Kundalini chanting is really good. It's something about, our voice has a frequency. That's why when we're making like goals and we're trying to manifest, they say speak it out loud, you know. But those are basically the ones that I do, but it's like there's no one fits all. So like the only one that I would say that would work for everybody is really bringing up that feeling of love and gratitude and joy. If you can't bring up love, gratitude and joy, like even if you have to like focus on just happiness, like smile, like anything to feel like joy and raise yourself to a higher frequency, because being uncomfortable, feeling stressed out, it's going to be a lower frequency. You're going to vibrate at a lower level. And when you're at that higher frequency, it doesn't matter if you're meditating or not meditating. When you walk down the street and your aura, which is like 6 feet on each side of you, it's going to brush into other people and they feel it. Like I literally can walk by other people and have them look up and smile. I'm the only white girl in this neighborhood. People did not used to always look up and smile. I used to get in a lot of fights back in the day.
Hmm.
But now it's like it's just contagious and it's so cool. And it's just one thing that I think is heart coherence. Like all the other practices are good, and a lot of people who are dealing with anxiety and are dealing with trauma still, they have to learn coping mechanisms before they can learn meditation. They have to learn how to ground themselves. I do something called shift and stay, which is part of the SRM I studied, where I shift my focus from like, okay, if I'm breathing too fast, or I'm feeling jittery, I'll shift my focus to the energy in my hands, and that automatically brings me down. Because
Hmm.
I notice when I feel anxiety, especially in the past when I'd have a panic attack, I'd feel like my soul is being lifted up. It's like this up feeling. And I used to disassociate, like I was going to leave my body. But when you like shift your focus and you ground yourself, it brings you back down. You diaphragm breathe. And then I focus on the energy in my hands. And that's also recommended by Eckhart Tolle. And it just immediately brings me down. And that's what's good, is when you can learn how to just be present, then you can move on to meditation, you know? And when someone's anxious, and you want to meditate, the flame also helps. But yeah, it's really hard. A lot of people think that they can't meditate, but you don't always
Hmm.
have to have your eyes closed either. You could stare
No.
at the floor,
You can have a focal point, look
Yeah,
at
yeah.
something. A lot of people, would ask me throughout, oh, how do you do it? I'm like, all right, I want you to make a list of 3 things that make you happy, maybe 3 or 5 things that really actually, not things that should make you happy. If I'm
Right.
in
I
a
hate that
fight with
word.
my kids, I'm not going to use my kids to make me happy because I'm in an argument. It's just making me more tense. So it might be, Lisa gave me a heart on my photo on Facebook. Oh, that made me happy. Or I have a purple, my purple phone, or or something. And then I tell them, I'll just breathe deeply into your gut. Try to do gut breathing rather than your chest going up and down, and sit there for 5 minutes and try to think of those happy things, and just let your breath out slowly. You are meditating, in through my nose out. I'm like, no, don't worry about that. Whatever feels
Right.
comfortable. And it's not going to hit where you get into self-regulation after doing it once, or maybe after doing
Yeah.
it for weeks. And then suddenly, you're imperceptibly improving, and you go, oh my goodness, I was relaxed for 10 minutes. I
Yeah.
was thinking of happy things. I was, disputing illogical, you mentioned it, whether it was from your mother or from a teacher,
Right.
or who is the introjections from people that have had an impact on us, that and wait a minute, does this mistake mean I'm an idiot? No, all humans make mistakes. Okay, so you're a human, you made a mistake. I'm going to try to apologize, rectify, and not repeat it, and forgive yourself. And that's where that is a supernatural place, and so, you mentioned the meth. I mean, did you ever see the meth men? I have. The shadow people.
Oh yeah, the
Oh
shadow
yeah, the
people. Of
shadow people.
course. Are you kidding
So,
me? I'm freaking Demon Slayer right here. I've seen the hooded figures, the shadow people. Yep. That's a whole nother show.
well,
We
so
could
you,
speak
yeah,
on that.
you're in a supernatural space. I recommend, when people are going to start doing it, they say a prayer of protection for themselves.
Yeah.
Please protect me while I'm here, and let me, because I've done guided meditations where the person was asking for things in the guided meditation that I was not comfortable doing. State your full name 3 times. I'm like, okay, well, I know a lot about folklore and witchcraft and so on,
Yeah.
so forth. How I say my name is very important to possess, for possession or something like that. So
Yeah.
I'm not going to do that. We'll skip that, I mean, but I also, I know it's a supernatural place, because my default mode for so many years was the dishonest ego building. Oh, I'm good, I'm this, I'm that, and
Right.
whatnot. But there, I cannot do that.
Yeah.
If I so my wife is terrible, she treats me horrible. Usually what comes through after that is, yeah, but you were being kind of a jerk too, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
It is. I think it is definitely a supernatural space. Have you had any of those guys? And the reason I know it's not a hallucination is because I've hallucinated many times
Yeah.
before,
Yeah.
and
There's a
they're
big
usually
difference.
unique. They're
Yeah.
usually unique, but those times I was on a lot of stimulants. My pupils were dilated,
Right.
packed,
Right.
and I got a creepy ass feeling from those things. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go in the house. And then I didn't know anything about it, but then I met a lot of people that had done meth. I'm like, oh yeah, you you saw the shadow people. So
Well, I didn't really, I saw them mostly when I was sober, when I decided to turn, because like it didn't mess with me as long as I was messing up, because I was oppressed by this one, which I didn't believe in demons because I was into Wicca and they're like demons don't exist. And my guides actually took me to the Akashic records and showed me my book of life that said where it came from. And it was moving through Lisa's church and it didn't react till it saw Lisa. And so for a really long time, I eventually got its name and everything, but I could feel everything that it felt. It had never known anything but darkness. It never, that's all it ever knew. It hated the other ones that it was with, the other 5 demons it came with. It hated itself, but that's all it knew. Um, and it just got, and it made me feel really horrible. Like I couldn't even say the name Jesus Christ. But when I had those accidents and I started going to this Pentecostal church where they literally would go old school and speak in tongues and
mm,
stuff,
yeah.
they did this healing. And I was using a walker because my spinal injuries triggered scoliosis, which is in my family. So my spine, I shouldn't even be walking, and I re injured. So I've torn hips as well. But it was just like amazing. I didn't feel like trauma as badly. I didn't feel cravings like I did for drugs. And but yeah, I spent years having nightmares and wake up with bruises on I'd wake up, they'd be upside down hands on my thighs. Like I couldn't
Okay. Yeah.
make them with my hands on
Yeah.
my arms. And it was like, you know, starting to you know, find God again. And at the church during that healing, and I had issues with Jesus when that thing was
Mm,
around me. I just didn't like him. But when that healing happened, I literally saw, nobody else saw it though. I don't know, they weren't looking, but I saw like Jesus coming out of the sky, and I couldn't really see his face because it was so bright.
mm-hmm,
And it was not the sky, but I was indoors, so like the
mm,
ceiling. And he had this heart, it was outside of his chest and glowing, and this was glowing, and he had a white like hood on with a robe, and like blood red or wine colored, probably more of a blood red, along the outside, like a line edges. And he came towards me in his hands, and it was like he kissed my forehead and passed either through me or into me, probably through me, because I doubt I'm walking around with Jesus. Well, we all are Christ consciousness, but
mm-hmm.
there was like this, and he did it more for me because I felt like I had done something wrong. Because I would go to that church and cry every day, like, oh my God. I did, because I accepted the darkness at one point. Life was so hard, and I felt God had, turned on me, that I
Yeah.
let it in. And I just felt so renewed and felt so good. And even though I'm not like a certain Christian, like, organized religion type person, there is like a Holy Spirit feeling that comes over when everyone's gathered and singing
Mm-hmm,
and feeling love. I do like that part. But yeah, I dealt with the darkness, and I would have those nightmares and wake up with a hooded figure over me, shadow figures. The last time I saw it, and I decided I wasn't going to fear it. It was feeding on fear. It was coming out of my closet, like ooh, like trying to scare me. And
mm-hmm,
I jumped, and then I caught myself, and I was like, nope, you're not going to get me. This is not happening. And I told it to leave. You're not welcome here. I rescind my invitation. That's it. And it didn't come back. I even had this dream where I was in this place. It was like a place of power, and I was with my guide, and there was a guy, and he was guarding the place of power. And I absorbed all this energy. And my guide said, we need, and the demon was pacing in the distance. She said, we need someone who can throw light. And I suddenly threw like this light, and it hit him, and he just kind of like dissipated. And I said, obviously, I think I can. Apparently, I can throw light. And whether it was a dream, whether it was real, and it felt more real than like reality, but
mm-hmm.
I haven't had issues with it. And I'm telling you, it's fear. It feeds on fear. None of these things, ghosts, the supernatural, it only has the power that you give it.
Yeah.
It's the same with anything and anyone. You have the power, and nobody, even your own emotions, your own beliefs, it only has the amount of power you're willing to give it. Even like TV or a person, how much attention you're willing to pay attention, that's you're giving of, that's the amount of power that it has. I mean, it's all up to us. We have the power, so now we decide, what are you going to do with it? Once you realize you have it, now what are you going to do with it? We're co-creators.
Yeah, yeah, I had a lot of experiences where, I was very resentful of structured religion and so on and so forth. And, part of it, they were doing a very bad job for one thing. People are
Yeah.
going for a spiritual experience, and they're getting, maybe a little fellowship, some networking for their business and so on and so forth. And they're behaving in a very spiritually immature way, who's sitting in judgment constantly, sitting in anger, sitting in these places that we weren't told to be. So I mean, I accept Christ as my savior personally, but I don't know if I would be invited to any Christian any Christian things,
Right.
so on and so forth. I don't think they would say, oh, we want you, Paul, because I get some weird reviews. What's coming up, Lisa? What's coming up in the future for you?
I have no idea. Only good things though, at least according to my cards. Because like I said, I'm 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 in between I think that I'm thinking about doing something offline, but I keep getting pulled back to doing things online. It takes so long to establish yourself online to make money.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I'm going to figure out if I'm going to either work with people offline, online, or both. But it's like all my cards keep saying is massive abundance is coming my way. I have finally feeling the inspiration is finally time to start my book as well.
Nice.
So I usually don't talk about it because then I'm like, great, now I have to write it. But I already did the outline and
There you
I
go.
only do it when I'm inspired. I actually literally, if I'm not inspired to do something, I'm not going to do it. It's like I don't know. If I don't feel it, I'm not going to do it. Because why should we be forcing ourselves to do things because we feel like we're supposed to or should? That word should shouldn't even be in the dictionary. The word should be I could if I wanted to. And that's what Linda Hayes talks about. All the shoulds. I should be doing what are 5 things you think you should be doing? Change the should to I could if I wanted to, you know? I should be working harder. I could be working harder if I wanted to. If we're not doing it, it's because we don't want to. We're not inspired to. Life, I feel like in a way, the non-doership kind of fits me in a way because life is being lived through us. Like if God is life, having experiences through us, when God or life is done having the experience of whatever I'm experiencing right now, like when I wanted to smoke, I smoked until I just didn't feel like smoking anymore and I started vaping. And my lungs have never felt better. I'm like, awesome. And when my body is done, life is done having the experience of vaping, then I won't vape anymore. And honestly, I just didn't want to get high anymore. I
Mhm.
just didn't want it. And I can literally like my son's father's of course still in my life. He gets high and it drives me nuts. And I catch him like that and I throw it in the freaking trash if I can get it. But if he's gonna do slow suicide, all I can more do is warn him. And it's horrible to still see somebody who's
Mhm.
still there and it's 10 years older than me, you know? I think we don't want to make this too long because people are going to turn it off halfway through.
Okay, yeah, we've gone for a little while, but I look
I have no
forward to
idea.
whatever you are coming up with in the future. I don't usually broadcast my future goals too much because a lot of naysayers out there. I don't need it attached to what I'm
Yeah,
going to do. I'll tell the people after it's done. Oh, I wrote a book, it's done. But yeah, I mean, there's gratifying things to do that aren't big things, the opening the door for someone, smiling at someone, taking 5 minutes to listen to them complain. Any of those
totally.
things, are still gratifying. So every day I like to have some gratifying stuff through the course of my day. And this interview has been very gratifying for me, and we'll keep up with any of your future endeavors. I would love to have you on again and hear anything you have to say about anything, Lisa. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here on Synergy. And thank you so much, Lisa, for coming and being a guest here.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you so much. We'll definitely have more to talk about.
All right. You have a good night. I'm going to stop recording.